Hi everyone, I'm Jane. I was born without being able to see. I believe I do not own eyes. I'm not sure if anyone noticed this strange feature of mine, but no one has ever criticized me for that. Maybe because they are aware that doing so is rude. Even my parents never talked about my non existent eyes. I guess they didn't want any more pain, or just were busy fighting and throwing stuff around every night that they argued. My childhood was different from everyone. I studied at home, so I was never bullied by the bastards at school, my father often told me. Although that environment protected me from my shortcomings, deep down I always earnestly wanted to have eyes like normal people to see my parents. I also looked forward to breaking the cold atmosphere in this house. Because of my sight disability, my feeling and hearing disabilities dominated, hence, I could hear every fight between my parents. Every time they fought, I felt guilty for being born abnormal, causing them unhappiness. In deep sorrow, I sneaked out of the house one night carrying a small dagger to protect myself, wandering aimlessly around the fenced-in area of the front street. I would keep going like that until I reached the end of the fence. Then I was afraid of getting lost and immediately returned. From that habit, I met my first friend. His name is George, the one-legged George. He lost part of his left leg at birth. That congenital misfortune made it easier for us to become friends. We snuck out of the house together more often after agreeing on the time and location on the phone. I followed the fence to the rendezvous point where George would see me and pick me up. Things lasted like that for 2 months until one night George let me beyond the ordinary fence and took me to a remote place. He proactively placed his hand on my lap, stroked my hair, and praised me for having beautiful eyes. Hang on, what? Was he insulting me right there? I was such a poor little dove not to have my own eyes, and he dared me to say that my eyes were beautiful. I could feel the blood inside my veins boil. Without any response from me, George came closer and touched my body. Hell no. This was never what I expected. I did not want to accept this disrespectful man. In an instant, I pulled out the dagger and stabbed him to protect me. With his disabled legs, of course, George could not run. He lied there next to the fence with his earnest blue eyes, as if pleading with me to keep them. Of course, I gave him what he asked for. I took his eyeballs out with my fingers and took them home with me in my pockets, leaving George's body there. Once settled in my warm room, I tried to put George's eyes in my sockets, but couldn't press them inside. Perhaps my face is too small for their size. I couldn't help imagining I have those beautiful blue eyes like George's. I would have been pretty if these eyes were mine, but in vain, they couldn't be stuffed into my face. If Mom found out about those hooked-out eyeballs, she would get mad at me and call me an eccentric. I was just a pitiful child, thinking of the effort spent to win George's blue eyes. I didn't want to waste them. Hence, I swallowed them down my throat. But the taste of blood made me shudder. I vomited them out. But the second thought of my effort to bring them back home and not wanting George to die unjustly, I was determined to swallow his eyes down so that he could stay with me forever. Waking up after that night, my hands were sticky, probably due to blood. I went to wash my hands in the bathroom. My parents were anxiously talking about George's death discovered by a nearby farmer. I heard they mentioned my name. Moments later, I was in the bathroom. I heard Mom's footsteps and the sound of the door latching. I turned around to get a look at the bathroom to check. That was when I realized the bathroom door had been locked. What were they doing? Why would they lock me in here? You savage! Was I not pitiful enough? A few minutes later, I heard the sound of a police car. They rushed in and dragged me away. I screamed when I saw that my parents didn't bother to come over to keep me. I heard their crying, but in a very calm way without putting a single bit of effort to hold me back. And I hated them for that. They were not worthy of being my parents. They didn't even give me the eyes I earned for. They were real bastards. After calming down, I found myself in the prison. The policeman interrogated me, insisted me to look him in the eye when giving my answers. Couldn't this bastard see that I had no eyes? I screamed at him, made him lose his temper, and called me mad. He accused me of being mentally ill for lying to myself that I couldn't see a thing when in fact I had big brown eyes. His last words to my face were that I killed George and took his eye out on purpose so I deserved to be executed. I ignored what he said, still closing my eyes and holding on to my faith. In the following days, when a psychiatrist came to talk to me and came to the conclusion that I had severe mental depression as the result of being isolated in my own home by my parents during my upbringing, I laughed and called her a psychopath for her thought of such an absurd perspective. I wish I could eat her eyes too, and also those of the other policemen. I am telling you this story from my cell, waiting to be determined by the police for my poor fate. But I did not feel any fear. The only thing I could feel were George's blue eyes staring at me from the inside of my stomach, dancing in my veins and turning my blood blue. Perhaps if he hadn't uttered such stupid words that night, I'd have loved him. For now, he's become part of me. So, I have blue eyes. Do you understand?